You're listening to Spellbound. Welcome to episode 26 of Spellbound. I'm Julian Smith. Spellbound is now a CastBox original. You can still listen to it anywhere else you typically listen to podcasts, but check out CastBox today and see what's making it the fastest growing and highest rated podcast app for both iOS and Android. All right, let's do this. I'm here with Andrew Rader, the Fax Machine.
Back.
Fax Machine, F-A-C-T-S. We're talking about reality as simulation.
Is the universe a simulation?
I think this is the first episode we've recorded where there's beer involved.
No, Flat Earth, we had beer as well.
Oh, we did? The least popular Spellbound episode so far?
Is it?
Yeah. So we're off to a great start.
So, Julian, why do you think the universe is a simulation?
I was going to ask you the same question. Aren't you the Fax Machine?
Okay, so I can lay out the case if you want.
Yeah, why don't you start?
Okay, so it's very similar to Fermi's paradox. Do you know what Fermi's paradox is?
Vaguely familiar, but why don't you break it down?
It's basically, where are the aliens? So we live in a galaxy of 400 billion stars, and that galaxy is one of hundreds of billions of galaxies in the universe. So there are more stars out there than grains of sand on planet Earth.
Right.
So there's just like an incomprehensible number of stars out there in the universe. And we don't think that the origin of life is particularly rare. So we think that life could be kind of all over. There may even be life on Mars. There may be life on Europa, other places in our solar system. And what would it take to make an intelligent civilization? We don't really know. That's like the Drake equation that adds up like the probability of a planet existing, planets that bear life, that life creating technology, the technological civilization surviving. So because there are just like an incomprehensible number of stars out there, there should be tons of other advanced aliens. Now, they're really far away, so we wouldn't have encountered those aliens. But the Fermi paradox is, even in our galaxy, there should be many advanced extraterrestrial civilizations because there are 400 billion stars, and we don't think life is that rare. And even traveling at sublight speeds, a very small fraction of the speed of light, you could get across the galaxy in a few hundred million years, maybe. And a few hundred million years is a tiny fraction of the time that Earth has been around. Earth's been around for 4.6 billion years. Life has been around for most of that time. So if life has been around for that long on other planets, and some of these planets are much older than our planet.
Can I ask you a question about that real quick? So how do we know that the universe is this old?
That's a good question. So universe, we can tell based on, when we peer through space with a telescope, we see back in time. So the distance that we can see, we
because
can
of light speed or something?
Yeah. We see at the speed, light travel, well, what we see in our eyes and what goes through our telescopes is photons traveling at the speed of light. Right. So we collect those photons, and they've been traveling since the beginning of the universe. So if we look at like really distant galaxies, we can actually see the formation of galaxies that are born just after the Big Bang.
Really?
So we can see across space, which allows us to see across time, see galaxies just as they've been formed.
So by looking through a telescope, we can literally see into the past?
Absolutely. Yeah. Every time you look into the telescope, you're seeing into the past. So
really?
Andromeda is like 2 million light years away. So, if people in Andromeda are looking at Earth, if they had a, incredibly powerful telescope, they'd see, Earth before humans, basically. If you looked at another galaxy or they were looking at us, they'd basically see the dinosaurs because, that's the light that's leaving
They would literally
Earth.
see dinosaurs?
They would literally see dinosaurs. Light takes time to come across space, so you're seeing the past because the light has been traveling for a very long time.
So it has to do specifically with light speed?
It is exactly to do with light speed, yeah.
Okay, so continue.
Okay, so anyway, there should be tons of aliens out there, and because
why?
Just because
there
are
the age
so
of the
many.
universe?
Well, yeah, you're right. Yeah, exactly. Because there are so many planets out there. There's so many stars out there, and we think there are also lots of planets. Kepler Space Telescope shows us that there's planets around most stars.
This episode is not
Earth
about
is
aliens.
Not.
I just want to reassure viewers.
Well, it's not, but this is sort of the basis of the argument. It's very similar to Fermi's paradox. So there are tons of aliens out there, we think, because there are tons of planets out there, and we don't think life itself is necessarily rare, right? All the organic molecules that we find on Earth that make up life are ubiquitous. They're everywhere in the universe. So actually recently, Cassini data, they found organic molecules on Enceladus, which is a moon of Saturn, and it actually shoots geysers of water out into space, and Cassini can collect that. So we find the building blocks of life absolutely everywhere. There's water on about 12 worlds in our solar system. Mostly it's underground, but Earth is the only place with surface liquid water. Titan has surface liquid, but it's not water. So we think that Earth isn't unique, right? Earth is like many planets that exist elsewhere. So we think that life probably also would develop on those other planets.
Is it identical to these other planets? Or
Yeah, very similar. I mean, in the same...
You can take a human and put it there and they would live fine?
Yeah, basically in the same zone. I mean, so Earth has oxygen. Oxygen was created by life. I mean, bacteria...
By plants?
Yeah, more like algae.
Okay.
Yeah, algae basically created oxygen on the planet, yeah. It's bacteria that create oxygen. They breathe in carbon dioxide, just like plants, like they undergo photosynthesis.
Okay.
So they breathe in carbon dioxide and they output oxygen. And over millions of years, Earth developed an oxygen atmosphere because the cyanobacteria were putting out this oxygen.
Right, okay, I'm with you.
Right, so Earth didn't start with oxygen. So to have oxygen, you would need these plants and stuff. Like, you know, a planet wouldn't just suddenly, out of the blue, develop humans or intelligent civilization. You would have to have, like, all the bacteria. I mean, Earth had single-cell life forms for about 3 billion years before anything complex came along. But we think that eventually, if you have all these planets existing, more planets than all the grains of sand and all the beaches of the world, it's like 10 to the 24 or something like that is the number of planets. And if you have all these planets for so long, for 13 billion years, you should have other intelligent civilizations coming along. And they may destroy themselves, like we may destroy ourselves with nuclear weapons and stuff like that. But anyway,
what you're saying, I'm following your logic. Can I attempt to sum up what you're saying?
Sure.
What you're saying is that based on bacterial evolution and what we've seen happen on Earth, there should be intelligent life on other planets?
Pretty much, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's just that there's so many planets out there that one of them at least, or others of them, should develop intelligent civilizations like we did. There's nothing special about us. I mean, that's the Copernican principle. I mean, we used to think that Earth was the center of the universe. Turns out that's not really true. There's other planets, right? Mm-hmm. And then we thought our solar system was all that there was. And that's not really true. There's other stars out there too, right? And then we thought our galaxy was the only galaxy, and that's not true. There's other galaxies out there. We're all part of this universe. And now maybe we're actually part of a multiverse. Maybe there's multiple universes in parallel. So anytime we think we're special, we're always wrong. So there's probably other intelligent civilizations out there too.
So this is probably really depressing to a lot of our Western listeners that we're not special.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, no, humans are definitely not special. And anyway, the fact that there's so many intelligent civilizations out there, potentially, means that they'd be ahead of us in technology. So they'd be able to build really good computer systems, right? Already we have pretty good virtual reality. We can simulate, when we build a movie, we don't actually, put in all the special effects characters. We basically make them AI and have them move around and fight in a battle scene. Whenever you watch like a battle scene in a movie, it's not like actors in suits anymore. It's just like AI elements kind of fighting each other in pre-programmed ways, right?
So you're saying that these other planets, they should have intelligent life because they predate Earth or something like that?
Well, many of them do predate Earth.
Okay.
And even if they didn't, who's to say, it took about 4 billion years for us to come along on Earth. But if we're not special, maybe some planets would have intelligent life coming along much earlier.
Okay.
Right? So maybe it would take 2 billion years on another planet, or maybe 3. Anyway, if it was 3, that means that they've been around for 1 billion years. 1 billion years is an incredibly long time. Just, in the last 100 years, our technology has completely changed, right? So if they came along 1 million years before us, just imagine how far our technology is going to be in 1 million years. Even in 100 years, it's tough for us to talk about what technology is going to be like.
Right.
But if some other intelligent civilization came along 1 million years ago, their technology is 1 million years more advanced than ours. 1 million years is the blink of an eye in the life of the universe. But for a civilization developing technology, it's an incredibly long time. So they would be like so far advanced ahead of us.
I see what you're saying.
So they would have the ability to create much better simulations. And so that Fermi's paradox is, where are the aliens? So, if aliens are everywhere, why haven't they visited Earth, and why are we here instead of them?
So is this whole simulation argument based on the presupposition that aliens should exist and should have superior technology to ours?
More or less. Yeah, I mean, there's other versions of it. I guess you could have, just the idea that, hey, we're in a simulation. But the real argument in favor of it comes from the idea that because there should be other super advanced civilizations ahead of us, those civilizations would be able to create computer simulations that are much better than ours. And they would have been around for a long time, and they'd be able to create many simulations. So basically, if you have a civilization that can create 100 or 1,000 simulations, that means there's 100 or 1,000 times as many simulated universes as there are real universes. So if an intelligent civilization can create a simulation of a universe, there should be more simulated universes than real ones. And if there are more simulated universes than real universes, that means probabilistically we're more likely to be in a simulated universe than a real one. Because, I mean, arguably there's one real universe. I mean, there's also this theory of multiverses, but let's say there's one real universe.
Well, multiverse is quantum theory.
Not really, no. They're both physics, but it's not exactly quantum theory, no.
It isn't? Are you sure?
I mean,
I think it is.
There's some interaction probably. I'm not even aware of the interaction. But
well, the interaction is quantum theory says that there's like 26 dimensions.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So in a sense, like quantum theory hints at something called string theory.
Right. String theory.
And in that sense, I think string theory like allows for multiple universes. So, I mean, there's definitely a relationship maybe, but it's not like a direct. But basically what it's saying is if a civilization can create more than one universe, let's say there's one real universe and there's multiple intelligent civilizations that are advanced in technology and they can create simulated universes. Let's say there's 1,000 advanced civilizations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they each create 10 simulated universes. That means there are 10,000 simulated universes and one real one.
Okay, so
the odds are
I have
1 in 10,000 that we're in a real one.
I'm tracking with you. I have two questions.
Yeah.
So the first question is, how do we know that all this talk about Fermi's paradox and aliens and other planets that predate Earth that could sustain life just as well as Earth, how do we know all that's not just bullshit?
Well, so it's based on data, basically. Like Fermi's paradox is based on the idea that there are many planets out there. So we see lots of stars in the night sky.
Who's we? This is observed by
scientists, telescopes.
Okay.
So, I mean, you can see the stars for yourself.
Right.
You can, I mean, I don't know if you can tell for sure, but it stands to reason that the sun is a star.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are other stars, and it stands to reason that probably other stars might have planets around them.
Okay, I'm with you.
Okay. That's a pretty old idea, actually, that stars have planets around them. But we didn't know for sure until about 30 years ago. That's when the first planet was ever discovered around another star in the 90s.
Okay.
But now we know, and there's a number of other observatories you can see from the ground, but basically there's a number of ways we detect planets around other stars. You can actually monitor a star really closely and watch for a slight dip in brightness as a planet passes in front of it, and it's a very tiny one, like far less than 1%, 0.001% or something like that, to dip in brightness as a planet passes in front from a telescope. You can see the planet, so you can see the star wobble back and forth.
Okay.
And you see that through Rader blue shift, which is a Doppler effect. So because light waves are compressed, like sound waves as a train passes. So light waves, if the star comes towards us, the light waves are compressed, becomes more blue. If it moves away, it's expanded, more red.
This is why when an ice cream truck passes you, it becomes lower pitched.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly the same idea. The same thing happens with light as stars come towards us or become farther away, and that's because the planet's gravity tugs the star. So we can see the impact of the planet on the star. So mostly we find planets by monitoring stars and seeing the impact of potential planets on them.
Okay, I'm with you.
Right? So based on those measurements, we see planets around other stars. So that's how we know there's lots of other planets out there. Now, we don't know anything really about life, except we know there's lots of different types of life on Earth. We know that the building blocks of life are ubiquitous in the universe. So comets, for example, they often have amino acids. They definitely have organic molecules. So the building blocks of life are everywhere. That doesn't mean life is necessarily easy to come about, because DNA chains are pretty complex, proteins are pretty complex. You might have this like RNA life. That's what people think, RNA world.
What's RNA?
RNA is like DNA, but it's a single strand, and it has one different base pair. So DNA has 4 base pairs, RNA has a slightly different one, and it's a single chain, and it's shorter usually.
So RNA has one position, whereas DNA has 4.
No. RNA still has 4. It's just has one of the base pairs. I forget which one is different.
Okay.
Yeah, and it tends to be in short chains. We use it for communication between cells, so it's like a messenger in our cells, and viruses use RNA, actually. But RNA can perform the basic function of DNA, but it's really simple, so short chains. Yeah.
So DNA is kind of an evolution of RNA. It's
that's what we think.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. We think that DNA probably came from RNA.
Interesting.
We're totally, I think we spent probably 20 minutes completely on different subjects off tangent, but that's okay.
We're setting up the argument for reality as a simulation, right?
So the basic argument is if there's other intelligent civilizations out there, they would have better simulations than we have, and they would be able to create many of them, and there's probably more than one intelligent civilization, and they probably came before us. So if there are 1,000 intelligent civilizations that have created simulations, that means that we're more likely to live in a simulation than the real universe. Now
this brings me to the next question, because I had 2 questions.
Yeah.
This is my second question. What is the utility of assuming there are real universes and simulated universes? Where does that idea come from? I don't know how to compartmentalize that concept.
I mean, I don't know that there's a utility to it exactly, but I guess it just kind of makes sense. It's kind of what we do. We create virtual worlds, virtual online worlds, massively multiplayer online games, Second Life, and things like that. So it kind of just seems like something that aliens might do to possibly recreate their ancestors. That's something they might do it for.
So this seems like a leap
from the past. Does it? So, I mean, we do it now. So why does it seem like a leap?
So you're saying that because
they're just much better at doing it.
So you're saying that this argument is resting its case on the fact that humans want a virtual reality, and so therefore any higher evolved species than humans would also be after a simulated reality as well?
There's basically 3 options here. One is there are no advanced civilizations for some reason. We're maybe the only advanced civilization.
Earth.
No, other than us. Let's give us credit. Say we're relatively advanced, but not enough to create these simulated universes. But maybe we're going that direction. Maybe
we're the only humans. Maybe we have just stumbled upon this technology. Maybe it's we
don't have the technology to recreate universes yet.
Right.
We just think that eventually, if we keep on the same trajectory, eventually we'll be able to create universes.
Okay.
Right. So, 100 years, 1,000 years, who knows, really? But, I mean, eventually we should be able to create universes, simulated universes that are pretty good. So, anyway.
Yeah, right. Because with the neural lace, once people are plugging their brains into computers and the computers are operating on light instead of copper wires and stuff like that, it's very feasible that we could create a very realistic universe that is indistinguishable from our own reality.
That's right. And it's not just for us, though. It's for the people who live in that universe.
Right.
I'm actually watching Westworld right now. It just started. The hosts are starting to figure out they're fake, right? They're like robots or whatever.
I gave up on
Spoiler
Westworld.
alert, but that's in the opening credits, so it doesn't matter. But basically, what we're saying is a simulated universe is basically they wouldn't be able to tell. We're like the hosts in Westworld, so we don't know that it's fake, right?
Okay, so in this reality where there are aliens who have superior technology to ours and they're creating simulations on their own, we are the Sims of that reality.
Yeah,
and we're just living out this reality unbeknownst to all of us.
Exactly. Yeah, and the thing is, you can never tell. So this is actually
this sounds like insanity.
Well, it's actually the basis of philosophy. It's not. This is not a new idea. Socrates asked, "How can we tell that this is reality and not a dream?" When you're in a dream, you think it's real.
Well, what is real? It's all chemical.
Yes, it's all chemical in your brain, but okay, there is a reality. There's an objective reality outside of yourself. So if you didn't exist, reality would still exist. Do you agree with that statement?
Right. Well, I mean, we're talking on a really deep level. We're saying that, we're basically talking about suspension of disbelief. In order to participate in this conversation, you have to say everything I experience in what I would call my day-to-day life is potentially not the ultimate reality.
That is true, but it's impossible to tell the difference. So, like, I guess my view on it is it doesn't matter, because even if we are a simulation, wouldn't you want to be the best simulation possible? Wouldn't you want to win the game? Like, I mean,
totally.
you know,
because the idea there is that if it's a simulation, that there is some greater purpose, that life is some sort of game that has like an objective of some kind, and that it's, you know, that's what you're insinuating.
Does it have an objective? I'm not sure it has an objective, but yeah.
But you just said that the idea is to do the best you can.
Well, the best you can for yourself, I guess. I guess everyone creates their own objective. What is the purpose of life? You know, everyone creates their own objectives as we go. It's the same as in those massively multiplayer online games like World of Warcraft.
But there is biological requirements for life.
Oh yeah, you have to follow the rules.
Yeah,
you have to, eat and breathe and reproduce.
I think it's about balance.
There's also this Taoist philosopher, Zhang Jie. So this is in Chinese philosophy as well.
And we're getting to simulation. We're kind of touching on it. We're getting to the meat of the episode.
No. This is exactly related to it. So Zhang Jie, he had a dream that he was a butterfly.
Okay.
And then he woke up and he was a man. And he asked, how does he know that he's not a butterfly having a dream about being a man? How does he know he was a man having a dream about being a butterfly?
You're basically saying like question everything, or like
no. And then Descartes. So this is why it's kind of the basis of philosophy, and this is what Descartes thought. Descartes thought, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. So as long as I'm thinking, as long as I'm able to understand myself and think, and basically consciousness, he thought, was proving that this is real. I guess he thought sort of a dream. This is an idea of Socrates as well, that dreams are sort of afterthoughts of reality. And that Descartes thought that if you could think and understand his place and be conscious, then it's reality. And that's how we know this is real, because we can think about it.
Reality is consciousness. You don't have consciousness in a dream.
Right.
Unless you're like stumbling into some kind of lucid dream where which is very rare or practiced. Even if you're aware in a dream, even if you are successfully lucid dreaming every time you attempt to do it, you're still kind of aware that you're in some kind of, other simulation.
Are you though, or when you wake up, do you just think that? Like I'm not sure that we know that. Like when you wake up, you thought, oh, I was dreaming. But maybe when you're dreaming, you think, oh, well, this is reality. Like how would you be able to tell the difference?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. You're grasping at very abstract concepts. How does this tie into the idea of reality as a simulation?
Oh, because a dream is basically a simulation, right? Like how do you know this is real? A dream is basically the old version of what we would now call a simulation.
Consciousness is what defines reality, is what you're saying.
So that's what Descartes said. I actually think Descartes was probably wrong.
Interesting. Why do you think this?
Well, so, I mean, are animals conscious? I don't know that they necessarily...
I would say they're conscious, but not self-aware. They're not self-aware because that's our neocortex,
Isn't that
right?
What consciousness is?
Well, I think you have consciousness, which is like awareness.
Right.
And then you have self-awareness, which is a higher functioning stage of our mind.
Well, so... I mean, like a worm is not self-aware, is it?
It's not self-aware, but I would say it's aware of survival.
I mean, I don't know that we could ever tell what a worm is actually aware of. It doesn't really have a brain.
But
it has kind of like nerve impulses.
I see what you're saying, but anything that
it's real.
Anything that has a system of survival, anything that acts in a predictable way, anything that is determined to survive has some sense of awareness. Okay. Maybe not self-awareness.
But Descartes wasn't talking about what is reality. He was just talking about how you prove reality. So I guess he wasn't totally necessarily wrong there. But the thing is, with a really good simulation, you wouldn't be able to tell. Like, seriously, you would have no idea, because all that you sense, all your senses are just interpreted as basically electrical signals that come to your brain. And if your brain was uploaded into a computer and it had the same impulses coming in, then you could not tell if it was real or not. You could generate artificial stimulus that would seem exactly like reality. The answer is there is absolutely no way to tell if this is a simulation. Well,
this is a spoiler alert for the rest of the episode.
So it's one of those things that's completely unprovable, but also undismissible. You can't disprove or prove it. But there are some bases in quantum mechanics that people have used to try to say that we think it's not a simulation. Basically, at the quantum level, it's Heisenberg uncertainty principle. You can never measure the position and energy of a particle, basically like an electron or something like that, right?
Right, because by measuring it, you're interfering with the energy itself, so you're
exactly.
You're disrupting it.
Yeah, and there's a ton of information. If you want to basically record the information about all the electrons in the universe or something like that, you would actually need more information than all the matter in the universe. It would basically be impossible to build a computer that could actually record all the information.
Right.
So the thing is, though, and that's valid. So basically, they're saying it's impossible to build a simulation that contains all the information in the universe. And that may be true. I wonder, though, if it's possible to spoof it in some way and kind of like build something that seems like it's acting at a quantum level. But I mean, if we're just hosts in some simulation, would it be possible to just spoof us and kind of like make us think we're measuring something, but we're not really, So that's one thing. Also, some quantum effects like the quantum Hall effect can't necessarily be recreated in a simulation. There's kind of like almost randomness in the universe. The quantum mechanics basically says because you can't measure something without changing it, there's kind of like this randomness, like particles appear out of nowhere all the time in deep space. Space is not empty, and then they just disappear, right? So this kind of cosmic background vacuum level of energy.
This is why we rely on the ideas of higher dimensions and stuff like this, because we see these particles coming into and out of our reality in an instant, and the only explanation is that there's something larger than us passing through our dimension.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we're only perceiving slices of it at a time because we're in a lower dimension.
It's an argument that gravity might be sort of a force that's leaking into our universe, but as mostly outside of our universe. But gravity's just leaking in.
So it makes gravity weak.
Gravity's super weak. Okay. So there's I guess 4 fundamental forces. There's electromagnetism, the weak nuclear force, strong nuclear force, and gravity. Those are like the 4 fundamental forces of the universe.
Okay.
Gravity is by far the weakest. If you have a fridge magnet, the magnetic force that holds it to the fridge can overcome the gravity of the sun or of the planet. You stick a magnet to the fridge and it doesn't fall because the electromagnetic attraction to the fridge,
otherwise it would fall,
is stronger than so its tiny little magnet is able to generate more force than the entire Earth.
Wow.
Basically. So gravity's super weak. It's like orders of magnitude weaker than any of the other forces.
Interesting.
I mean, we think of gravity as strong. It like pulls us down, we fall, fall, stuff like that. But it's actually, it's generated by the entire Earth.
Right.
You have this little magnet that generates an electromagnetic force, this tiny little fridge magnet, and it can overcome the entire planet.
What's interesting to me about the simulation argument is that most advocates of this idea that reality is a simulation are not religious, because it's totally counterintuitive to religion. Anybody who's going to subscribe to any kind of idea that this is some kind of limited existence and that the greater existence is outside of our lifetime, the mainstream is still religion. It's still like people who are going to be Buddhist or Christian or Catholic or Jewish. There's a lot of unreligious people that subscribe to this. What's interesting is that it's all kind of saying the same thing. If you ask me, it's like it's all kind of pointing to this idea that there's something greater than ourselves that we can't perceive yet.
Yeah, to some extent it's deist or maybe even pantheistic, which means that so most religions in the world, follow some idea of an interpersonal God or something like that.
Right.
At least the monotheistic ones. I guess some don't necessarily. I don't know how interventionist the Hindu gods are, for example, but like even the Norse mythology or the Greeks or something, the gods come and intervene in human affairs, right? But like the founding fathers, Jefferson, I think it was deist, possibly Washington, but basically they believe in a creator of the universe, but not a God who actually intervenes in our lives. And I guess it's sort of related to that in a sense, except the God is then the aliens who created the universe. It's impossible to prove or deny a creator of the universe. It's also impossible to prove or deny an intervening God. But I guess this doesn't require kind of evidence of intervention in a sense. And the other thing is advocates of the universe as a simulation aren't saying that the universe is a simulation. They're just saying it's impossible to show that it's not a simulation, or it's probable that it's a simulation, maybe. So, I mean, saying it's probably a simulation means that, yes, I guess there is a creator, and that creator is probably aliens. But people who would say that the universe is a simulation are also saying that it's probable that it's a simulation. We cannot prove it's a simulation.
I mean, when you say that the universe is probably created by aliens, when you say aliens, you alienate, no pun intended, a lot of people that are assuming that there is like some creator god or something like that. Like in other words, like what you're saying, alien is basically totally synonymous with the idea of a creator god or something like that. But
yeah, but so there's a big difference between a creator god who, just created the universe. If you want to bake an apple pie from scratch, first you must invent the universe.
Right.
That's Carl Sagan, right? Yeah, exactly. So that idea of a god or alien or force or something that started before the prime mover of the universe is not provable nor disprovable. We don't know. I mean, someday, I guess, possibly it could be, but it's hard to see how such an experiment could come about because it involves doing an experiment on something outside of the universe. How do you do an experiment on something outside of the universe?
You can't perceive anything out of your own five senses.
Well, we have instruments that can.
Really?
Well, yeah, measure in infrared, like night vision goggles.
Oh.
All kinds of instruments that let us measure outside our senses.
That's true. Interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way. Yeah, infrared is beyond our five senses.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's vision, but it's below our threshold of vision on the red spectrum. Yeah.
Interesting. So it is still vision, though. It's just more sensitive vision.
Well, there's no
you could argue
real distinction between like radio waves and X-rays and vision and light, visible light, and cosmic rays.
But by that logic, infrared is still not like revolutionary. It's still visual technology.
Right. We're talking about something totally different.
Right. We haven't really created anything that allows humans to perceive anything beyond their actual five senses.
Yeah. So humans have way more than five senses, for one.
You've said this before. I'm with you on this idea.
And stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like we have other senses that you talked about, like the ear thing,
Inner
with
ear,
balance and stuff
balance.
like that. You're basically saying that we have a limited capacity to understand what's happening.
Well, we have instruments to measure that. Like we have X-ray detectors. The dentist can see if you have cavities because they have a machine that can detect something beyond your senses.
But it's still visual, right?
Well, no. I mean, it's on the electromagnetic spectrum, but it's not visual. So the machine converts it into something that's visual. It displays it as a convenient image that is visual.
So we do have tools that allow us to see beyond our five senses.
Yeah, we do have tools that allow us to see beyond our senses.
That's pretty interesting.
But that doesn't mean beyond the universe. That's really different. Like beyond the actual reality, so to speak.
Like for instance, what created the Big Bang?
Right. Well, actually, that's something we can measure, but only by the afterglow of the Big Bang. So we can see the remnants of the explosion, basically. If we peer far enough back in time and back in distance, we can see early galaxies, and we can actually measure. In fact, cosmic rays are probably the afterglow of the Big Bang. So we get bombarded by them all the time.
It's actually kind of a unifying idea to me that reality is a simulation. I'm in a very open place in life. I'm not like opposed to or accepting of any religion. I think nobody really knows what this life is about. This reality is a simulation idea is kind of saying the same thing. But what's interesting is a lot of people who are not religious are subscribing to this. There's also something kind of terrifying about it because it's basically saying you don't really know and you've got to be cool with that. But I would argue that and think that there's no purpose to this. That's not a productive mindset in life, to think that there's no point to any of it, to think that there's no positive way forward in life. We know what constitutes life. We can look at biologically what constitutes life, and we can say these things are healthy, these things are not, and we know how to achieve healthy human life. For the most part, we can tell you on paper, but why we're here, we don't know. And that's what's interesting to me about this idea of reality as simulation.
Yeah, it sort of does reconcile religion and science, and I guess in a sense, but only a very small part of religion, which is sort of the creation idea, because there's a lot of other parts of religion about like how you should live your life and ethics, morals, and things like that.
Right, but those are all cultural.
Doesn't touch about.
Those are all cultural.
I mean, they're claimed to at least to be part of religion. I mean, they're certainly inferred from books and texts and things like that.
But that's all cultural, right? Those are all. I mean, like the Bible came out of Israel.
Oh, you mean they arise from cultural
Yeah,
basis.
I'm saying,
that's probably true.
I'm saying
Yeah.
that the laws that these religions make that are like that dictate how people how live, those are all cultural.
Oh, they probably arise from cultural, sources. Yeah, you're probably right about that. You're right. So the sort of spiritual sense, I guess. I mean, in some sense, it does have that element of it. And the other thing is like the multiverse idea of multiple universes in the creation of the universe does sort of reconcile ideas from religion, like the idea that the universe is created. So most of the Abrahamic religions like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam have a creation of the universe at one point in time, right? And then Hinduism, I think, actually has like a rebirth of the universe over and over, or something like that, which is probably the closest to reality. But some other religions have the idea that the universe is eternal, so it's always been around forever, right? And if you have a multiverse or a universe that sort of creates itself and then destroys itself and then comes again, in a sense, it's both eternal and it's a point of creation. So it does rectify that in some sense. But, the idea that there's a creator of the universe is absolutely compatible with science, but it's also not provable nor disprovable. So it's not really a scientific hypothesis. It's just kind of an interesting idea. And the other thing is, I don't think anyone who thinks the universe is a simulation thinks it actually absolutely is. They just think it possibly is, or maybe even probably is. But that's not to say like I have faith that the universe is a simulation. I just think that
you can't live that
on
way.
Balance, right? It also
That'll just drive you insane.
It provides zero moral guidance. So
right?
It has
Yeah,
none of
yeah,
that.
Totally.
It's basically what it is called deism, basically. The idea of a creator God.
How would you define deism?
Deism, I think, means that there's a creator God. Someone created the universe. God. Let's basically even just like the Christian God, like a white man in a beard, let's say.
Or we could say God is an algorithm.
Right. Well, basically, someone came along, created the universe, and then just said, "Okay, my work is done."
Right. Whatever God is, they created this thing, and then there it is.
And then they just like left. Basically, they put their feet up and started. They press run. So it's exactly the idea that the universe is a simulation. It's just that the creator of the universe happens to live inside another universe. That's pretty much what the idea of the universe is a simulation is. Deism. Yeah, 100%.
Interesting.
But it doesn't tell you how to live your life. It doesn't have any moral guidance. I mean, it's not... See, I think religion is generally more about the rules and the stories and the books and that kind of thing rather than just about, the universe is created.
Well, what's interesting to me about religion is that all religions have one thing in common, and that's the golden rule. They all promote the golden rule. That is that do unto others as you would have done unto yourself, because that's like basically if we are all what science says we are, we're all basically the same thing. We're all connected by some veil of reality that we can't put our finger on. You and I are basically the same energy manifested in different bodies, but in the grand scheme of things, after this simulation is over, after game over is here, you and I are going to discover that we're actually the same energy, just manifested in two totally different multiverses or realities or bodies or whatever you want to call it. But the golden rule is necessary for life because you've kind of got to. I mean, it's necessary for highly evolved life, because you could say that lowly evolved life, like bacteria and fish and reptiles and amphibians, are all just totally evolved for survival only. And so they're just constantly consuming, especially because fish, like the way that the light hits the water, they're constantly in survival mode because their field of view is so much shorter than animals who live above water. They only have like 6 feet of vision in front of their eyes. So they don't have any time to strategize. They're just constantly like, what's in front of me? Can I eat? So the more we can see, like that's what drove us above water. So like, when we became reptiles, when we got to land, we could strategize more. That's what drew us out of the water onto land, because we were amazed when we got to the land that we could see much further than we could in the water, so we could strategize. But then we became reptiles, and reptiles are just like deadly you know, you think a dinosaur or a crocodile, it's like, hell no, keep me away from those things. Like, I don't want to be near one of those because they're just going to eat me, you know? They have no empathy at all. And then we evolved to become mammals that have empathy, and they desire community, and they want to be pack animals, you know, and they want to learn how to work together. And then we become humans, and we have self-awareness, and we have this whole other level of awareness. You have to have the golden rule as humans, because if we didn't have that, we would just all be acting like reptiles still, which is we wouldn't even be capable of this conversation, because I would just be eating you right now. It is the basis
of morality.
I would just be eating you right now. I wouldn't even be interested in what you think about, because I would just want to survive. But I think there's some value to this conversation, so here we are having it. And I think that the golden rule is really the only thing you can really know for sure in this reality, as far as a way to live in terms of treating other people and stuff like that.
Or the platinum rule.
What's the platinum rule?
Platinum rule is golden rule version 2.0. It's basically do unto others as they would have you do to them. So maybe they don't want to be treated like you would want to be treated, so you treat them differently. This
is actually kind of like what Jesus said, be all things to all people.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't realized that was actually part of, yeah.
Which is interesting. That's like, that is kind of like the golden rule 2.0. That's interesting. One thing's for certain, if this is a simulation, this would be a very strange simulation in terms of human evolution, because when you look at it all from the grand scheme of things, it is very irreverent towards humans, because it's, you know, humans have only been here for what, 200,000 years or something like that?
Yeah, depending on how you measure it. Yeah.
So, and then how long we've been civilized for what, 10,000 years?
Well, yeah, what is civilization? Agriculture?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, probably.
We've been living in cities for 10,000 years.
Yeah, 10,000 years.
How old is Earth?
4.6 billion years.
Okay, so we're a blip on this radar. This would be
tiny blip. If we were on a calendar of the year, humans would have civilization for like a minute before midnight.
Right. This is a very strange simulation, if it is one.
Which is the whole reason why it probably is a simulation, because humans are such a small blip.
So what are you saying, that the world's going to end soon?
No. It's just that we will soon maybe develop the technology to be able to spawn other civilizations and other universes. And then those people will be probably in a simulation because they actually are, because we created them.
So I guess the final question is, Andrew Rader, are you going to upload your consciousness to the internet in this new universe that's created?
Oh, yeah. If we have the ability to, absolutely. You can travel anywhere you want. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Why wouldn't you do that?
But is it real?
What is reality? I mean, yeah, of course it's real. It's still electrons. I mean, it's reality in some sense. It's not a corporeal body. Like, you don't have a body, but other than that, it's real. It's still reality.
I think this is a natural ending point, because I think we're just going to like melt people's brains if we go any further.
Well, the other thing is, if the universe was a simulation, was it created 13 billion years ago at the start of the universe? This was created 5 minutes ago during this conversation.
Yeah, maybe.
You would never tell. You'd be able to tell, right? Like, if the universe was created 5 minutes ago with all your memories intact, how would you ever be able to tell? You never would be.
Especially because we regenerate all of our cellular makeup like every 5 years or something like that. Like
I think about every year. Every atom in your body is exchanged, or like it's actually it's about 90% on a floating basis of your atoms are exchanged in your body every year. So
every year you're a totally new person.
Longer, but yeah, basically you're not the same person you were a year ago. So yeah, what does that mean?
We're going to turn it over to the listeners. We want to know what you think about this. If you're listening on a platform with comments enabled, like YouTube or CastBox, feel free to share your thoughts with the other listeners. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. That way your phone will always stay up to date. I'm Julian Smith. This has been Spellbound. I hope you guys are getting a kick out of this. This one was kind of fun. I feel like we need to do a follow-up sometime. Maybe one that explores more of the mysteries of quantum theory, quantum mechanics, and everything we don't know, because I think that's just so interesting, everything we don't know. We know so much, only enough to know we know nothing. That's what's crazy to me about quantum mechanics, so maybe there's something more to that. Thanks again for listening. See you guys next Monday. Take care.